and you think about the nature of people, people get old, people get sick, people get injured. Where is the security in all of the effort and time that you've invested into this so-called business? It's not there. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pegasus Lounge. I'm just going to tell you right now that this is going to be a very long yet visual educational video. What we're doing today is something very special, which is we're going to use a digital whiteboard to start showing you guys exactly what's happening in the reseller model. I don't care how you want to call it. You want to call it eBay reselling, reseller, whatever. It's all the same thing. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it is all arbitrage, okay? I'm going to explain everything to you guys. We're going to whip out the digital whiteboard, and I've created a whole bunch of things, simulations, flow charts and stuff to explain to you what is happening. So if you are considering being a reseller or you're already a reseller, let me show you what's happening in your business right now, okay? So let's jump in today. Here is my whiteboard, okay? And we're going to explain exactly what arbitrage is, okay? You're going to have a lot of gurus tell you that it is buying low and selling high. True, not quite, all right? It's the caveat of buying low from one market and then selling high in another market. So that's why you have things like retail arbitrage, wholesale arbitrage, thrift arbitrage, currency arbitrage, real estate, ticket arbitrage, right? Where somebody might scalp some tickets, buy a bunch of Taylor Swift tickets and then try to sell it higher to somebody else. Things like that. You bought it low and then you sell it high, right? Somebody might buy a house or rent a house and then sublet it out because, you know, I bought the house, I converted it, and now Airbnb makes more money than, you see what I'm saying? Right. So that's what arbitrage actually is. Now let's talk about what happens generally in the whole eBay reseller market, okay? Essentially, items that you guys are selling, they used to be brand name items, and they came from a factory, you know, developed for the original brand, right? Doesn't matter what it is, Polo, DKNY, I don't care, you pick, right? And two things happen. Either they sell it to a wholesale distributor and then it goes to a big box retailer, or they sell it directly to the big box retailer, such as, I don't know, if it's clothing, Macy's, Nordstrom, you name it, JCPenney, I don't care, okay? That's not the point. The point is that between the retailer and the consumer, that's where the main market is. And that's where the item is at its highest value. As far as these guys, between the factory, the original brand, and the wholesaler and the retailer, okay, there is high volume of clothing and merchandise, right? So that's where they make their money. It's only between here and here, right, is where the item itself is of its highest value. So essentially what happens, right? The consumer who had the item probably didn't want it anymore, so they donated it to thrift stores, Goodwill, Salvation Army. So this is your secondhand market. And this is where you pick it up as a reseller at lower value. And then you bring it over to eBay to sell it at a higher value. The same idea over here with a retailer. Once the item is out of season, it's not moving, they might liquidate the item to some liquidators, and then it goes over to discount stores such as Ross or DD's Discount or something like that. Maybe they liquidate directly to some flea market sellers, whatever. But the point is that from the liquidation area, if you ever picked up some items from discount stores or whatever, that's what's happening here, right? And then the other one is your typical, you know, also from the consumer, where either they donated the stuff or they had a garage sale, an estate sale, something, and then you picked it up. Ultimately, these are kind of the main ways that you're getting stuff at the lower value and then selling them on eBay over here for to attempt to sell high. Now, it's accurate to say attempt to sell high, because when you watch people do the listings and the YouTube videos, very often when they do those, you know, what sold videos, more than half of the stuff, right, that they show you is where they had to reduce the price or where they had to take an offer or something like that. So yeah, once in a while you're going to do a decent sale where you got some pretty good margins on it. But more oftentimes than not, you're probably at a race to the bottom, or you had to, take a hit on a certain item in order to get rid of it. So it's more accurate to say that we're going to attempt to sell high. It's not guaranteed that we're going to sell high. Okay, so now let's get into the framework of being a reseller, all right? So I've created this that pretty much covers the whole thing, isn't it? So for all of you guys out there who say, I'm not a reseller and I don't understand reselling, what's there to know, really? So you guys do your research phase in the beginning, right? So you do the market research, your sell-through rates, and then your BOLO list. What is a BOLO list? Like the first time I heard of that, I was like, okay, what is a BOLO list? I'll bite. It's the be on the lookout stuff. So what are you talking about? What do you mean be on the lookout? Because, right, when you go outsourcing, you never know what you're going to come across. So what are you saying? That your business is, when you go out to make business decisions, you're doing them on the fly? Is that what you're saying? Pretty much. Okay. If you boil it down like that, I mean, I know some people are going to be upset that I put it that way, but that's exactly what's happening, isn't it? And then when you talk about the sell-through rates, well, look, you don't understand, Pegasus. Okay. We do STR research, yada, yada, yada. Okay. How do you do STR research? Well, we do the sold comps, and then with the pricing and blah, blah, blah. Then based on the past 90 days, I see. So you make the core of your business decisions based on snapshots of the past, based on past data. That's how you're operating, right? Okay. So now when you think of exactly what efforts that you put into doing this business, right? You could only have two outcomes, either the item sold or the item didn't sell, right? And what do you go through? You travel out, right? There's your trip time, gas, loading, and then you start sourcing. And you could source from the thrift stores, discount stores, garage sales, estate sales, liquidators, auctions, flea market, storage. Is that about right? That covers most of it, right? Okay, now you had your trip time to travel back, gas, unloading this stuff. Okay, now we have to go into the preparation phase, right? It could be inspection, cleaning, repairs, testing, authentication, sorting, right? Now we go over to photography, and photography requires staging to take clean shots and detailed shots, close-up shots, tags and labels, some measurements, all those things. Now we have to do the listing, and the listing, we got to come up with the keywords, the title creation, item specifics, upload the photos, do the description, the pricing, the shipping details, and return policy, right? That's pretty much what happens from A to B, from beginning to end, in order to attempt to flip a product. Now, if your item sells, then perhaps you go out and then you have to travel out again and then go source stuff. So you start at this point. Or you want to do a little more research for, more STR, more BOLO lists, more comp research or whatever. So you might start off at your research point, or you just might travel out again, one or the other. And then this is an endless reset of chasing the trends. It's an endless cycle over here, okay? If the item doesn't sell, then your money is tied in the goods, right? So if your money is tied in the goods, we can't go back, we can't reinvest. And that's why this red star is here. It just means that you're stuck with this item. So I just want to show you guys that this is all the work that goes into an A or B outcome. Now, let's come on over here, right? And this is how much work looks like if you were to went out and sourced 10 items and then brought it home, okay? Now, I just want to show you guys that this is how much work is involved if you did 100 items. This is 100 right in front of you. There are many of you guys out there who have you're juggling about 200 listings, 500 listings, 1,000 listings. This is how much work, your blood, sweat, time, tears put into this business. My question is, it doesn't matter what you have to show for, okay? Whatever money that you've made, whatever progress that you made or whatever, was it worth the trade-off? Was it worth all this time and effort that you're looking at on my screen right now in front of you? Did it add up, right? Was it worth that much labor? That is the question. And all of these items in front of you, we don't know which ones are going to sell and which ones are not going to sell. What's most egregious about this is that we even had videos, if you followed the Analyzing the eBay Advice series, where we had other YouTubers specifically say, well, what you do is that you just list the ones that sell. How do you know which one's going to sell? Let's do a simulation over here, okay? So for 100 items, let's just say the gray boxes right here represent, some item. It could be sunglasses, sneakers. It doesn't matter what it is, okay? Books, DVDs, it doesn't matter. So this is 100 freshly sourced items, okay? We haven't listed it yet, and that's why I left them as gray, because we don't know. We didn't try, right? But isn't this generally what happens if you went ahead, right, and started selling these items? Don't they kind of end up looking like this? And what I mean by this is fairly obvious, right? The green ones would represent things that sell in the first week. And then the yellow ones is something that may be sold, I don't know, within the rest of the 30 days, that within the month, right? And then the orange are things that sell in about 2 or 3 months, put it that way, right? Up to 3 months. And then the black squares are obviously stuck items, okay? Now the stuck items is very debatable because there are certain people who are insistent on playing the long game, and I'm just going to keep this stuff because, hey, who knows? It's going to sell in 8 months, 3 years, whatever, okay? And then there are people who say, no, if it's stuck with me for 3 months, it's a waste of my space and I need to rotate this thing already. So either I'm just going to completely blow it out, or I'm just going to take a hit on it. I'm going to take, I sourced it for $10. I'm going to sell for $5. I don't care. I'm just going to recoup as much money as I can. Some kind of exit strategy. And some people just hold on to it. So it's very debatable exactly what these items represent. Okay. So to each their own, but let me just use something in the meantime. So the point is not about what the ratio is. The point is that this is essentially what happens, right? When you source a whole bunch of items, a portion is going to sell off quickly. A portion is going to sell off at a moderate time. A portion is going to sell off slower, and another portion is going to look like you're pretty much stuck with it. Okay, so the question is, what happens over time when we get another freshly 100 sourced items? Doesn't this come over to this, and then it just basically looks like this? And now what happens here is that if we bring our simulation over time, this portion is what sells again because, statistically, and then we're stuck with even more items. So the question is now, what do we do with the stuck items? What exactly is the contingency plan? What is the exit strategy? And I'll tell you this, right? There's a lot of people on this channel who have openly admitted that the YouTubers who are, telling people to do reselling or whatever have left them high and dry when it comes to exactly what do I do with this stuff. Now, some of them finally, is open book, and then they tell you that you should just discard or donate it. But the problem is that, like, this is money. This is what eats into our profits, right? Because ultimately this is money tied up in the goods. So when you think about goods sourced over time, don't they kind of sort of look like this, right? Because you might have a collection of things, right? Like if this represented 100, so this is 600 listings total. And out of the 600 listings, 400 of them were accumulated. And then this is stuff that we just haven't listed yet. But what's going to happen here? Isn't it pretty much just going to look like this? This is going to be here, right? And then this is going to be here. And then we just collect more of the unsold items. So even if we were to do this at a grand scale, right, of like, this is 1,200 unlisted items so far, right? 1,200 unlisted items. This is literally working your fingers to the bone. This is literally sourcing and listing 40 items every single day for a whole month to get you at 1,200. So if we were at 1,200 freshly, sourced items, and then we somehow were miraculously able to put them all up in the same day, what happens over here? Isn't the same thing going to occur, which is, initially a portion is going to be sold off immediately, right? And then another portion is going to take longer. And then another portion is going to take longer, right? And then there's definitely going to be, the stuff at the bottom of the soup, put it that way, right? That's scraping the barrel, right? That we're kind of sort of stuck with. Again, the ratios is not what's important. What's important is that this is what happens, isn't it? Right? If you get 1,200 new things, there's bound to be a group that's going to sell right away. There's bound to be a group that needs a little more time, and then there's bound to be a group that you're kind of sort of going to be stuck with. So what are we doing here in this model, right? How do we end up with all this stuff? How do we get rid of it? I actually had a comment over here, okay, that we got. He says that I disagree with your assertion as it seems irresponsible. Do you really believe that major retailers like Walmart, Home Depot, and Publix maintain 50% sell-through rates? In reality, they likely sell around 10 to 15% of their inventory monthly, demonstrating the importance of volume in business. All resellers should emulate the business models of Amazon and Walmart. I don't know how you're supposed to do that because Amazon and Walmart are selling firsthand goods, right? Like directly to the consumer. Like I don't see how that compares. But he says ideally a store with 50,000 listed items and a monthly STR of 1.5%, generating a net profit of $25 per item, would yield an impressive $18,000 profit monthly. This math is actually not wrong. Here's the part that's the problem. You're not taking into the account the nature of reselling and what happens because of all of these items that you accrue over time. So the question is this, right? Are you talking about 50,000 items, all freshly listed on the shelf? They're all unique items and whatnot. What happens? What happens is that like a good, 25 to 30% is just going to be sold out on the first day. It's going to be great. And then it's going to dwindle. And then eventually you're going to be stuck with this. Now, if you're talking about 50,000 units of random goods sourced over time, then it's very likely that, they're already in this state. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to point out here is that no matter how many goods that you source, no matter how much business that you do, there's no momentum in this business model. If anything, the inventory can only diminish in its potency over time, because that's exactly what we're seeing here. It doesn't matter if I'm using a small scale like this, or it doesn't matter if I'm using a large scale like this. The same thing is occurring because that is just the nature of rapidly niching sideways with a whole bunch of one-off items. So here's the issue, right? What exactly would be the solution to all this? Okay. Here's what I teach and here's what I do. Okay. Because clearly the biggest bottleneck of what we're doing here in this reseller model, okay, is the fact that it's a one-off item. When it's a one-off item, if it sells immediately, I got to go replace the item. If it doesn't sell, then my money is tied up in the item. And now I have to fish into my pocket again to go source another one, and then hope they turn green, and then hope I have more greens than unsold. And on top of that, make sure that all the green and the yellow and the orange that I sell more than cover for the blacks, as well as my own personal, overhead over time. Yeah, this is a lot of effort in order for the result that you're getting, right? So I'm not going to ask you guys know personally how much results that you're currently getting. Again, I come back and I ask you, is the results that you're currently getting right now worth this much labor that you put into? And when you look at what's here on my screen, this is 100 listings that you would currently be working with. So there's many of you, again, that's out there with 200 listings, 500 listings, 4,000 listings that you're currently working with. This isn't even about all of the listings that you've already sold and moved on from. This is not even, covering stuff that you've already done. You know what I mean? Because I know there's many of you out there who've done reselling for a couple of years already, a couple of months. So how many listings have you already been through? So how much work have you already done? Where is the compound over time? This is the biggest thing of what is the whole myth of the eBay reselling business model. It's that it shouldn't even be labeled as a business model. It's just a side hustle. So what's the difference between a business and a side hustle? The side hustle 100% relies on your elbow grease, because the moment one of these sales are made, whether it gets stuck or it sells, you got to go replace it with another one. So how is this any more different than, door dashing or an Uber or, the pizza delivery? The day you stop working, the day the money slows down and it stops coming in. You know what I mean? So when you think about that and you think about the nature of people get old, people get sick, people get injured. Where is the security in all of the effort and time that you've invested into this so-called business? It's not there. That's what I want to show people what's going on. So, I get some pushback from people who are telling me, Peg, there's more than one ways to skin a cat. Okay, let me show you how I skin a cat then. So I'm going to come over here and show you a traditional business flow chart. Okay. Now, I want to be very clear. All right. This is not my idea of business or anything like that. This has been around forever. This is what I follow, and I'm trying to articulate it to you guys. So this is my articulation of what a traditional business flow chart is. Okay. If you really wanted to confirm it yourself, you want to fact check me, then just, pick up any book on traditional business and you see what I'm talking about. So here's what we do. Okay. In this business model, we start off with a USP, and a USP stands for a unique selling proposition. The word proposition means offer. So it doesn't matter if you're talking about a tangible good, a digital good, or a service. That's what the offer is. So once you have that unique selling proposition, right, we could go ahead and have that developed. And we want to go ahead and develop a minimum order quantity of it. That way, we are reducing the risk that we're putting it through. So here's the thing, right? You might say to yourself, yeah, but that's really difficult. How do I get a USP? How do I get a unique product or something like that? That's because when you're doing this reselling thing, okay, when you think about it, you're so bogged down with the busy work of, I have to replace everything that I sell. When it sells, I got to replace it. When I sells, I got to replace it, right? I got to source more, list more, source more, list more. When do you have time to put on the entrepreneur cap and think like a boss? You don't have a chance to do so. So you don't get to do your research and develop real expertise. You're so bogged down over here with every single item. This one sells, but not this one, not in that color. This brand's good. I think it was this name. Maybe it was you're bogged down with a whole bunch of scattered surface level knowledge on random goods and knickknacks, right? That you can't really focus on anything where your expertise can compound on top of each other. So what I personally teach, right, is not just the idea of having that unique selling proposition, but how to acquire it as well. Okay. And in order to acquire it, this is the 4 lenses of scrutiny. This is the best that I can convey what you need to do. And the 4 lenses of scrutiny is essentially 4 different perspectives of how you need to look at a niche, a product, and understanding it so that you can see whether or not you should green light this project for the market. So the first one would be the seller's lens, right? And then the buyer's lens, the reviewer's lens, and the scholar's lens. Okay. So the seller's lens is obvious what it is. If you can look at the item through the lens of the seller, then you see how they're positioning this item, how they're trying to sell it. There's people trying to sell it. That means like people are not wasting their time doing this. You could easily get on any eBay or Amazon or whatever and then see how many sold And that will give you, plenty inkling of whether or not this is, a good item or not, right? So it's one thing to do like a whole STR method or whatever. It's another thing to just, if you are in my niche, my category, right? And let's say I do eBay Motors and you want to get into car floor mats, you go ahead and then you go find a couple of the top car floor mats, and then you'll see that they've sold, 2,000 units, 1,000 units on the same exact listing. So then you would scrutinize that listing and just see like, how are they doing this? What is their product? What is it exactly about their product? That is the lens of the seller. So then it's the buyer's lens. The buyer's lens, very easy, okay? It's the perspective of pain, right? What are people complaining about? The reviewer's lens is the perspective of excellence. It's the exact opposite, because reviewers get sent stuff constantly. They're super jaded. So they're looking to be impressed. They're looking to be wowed, right? So once you could start understanding this niche, these products from the lens of the reviewer, now you understand how to innovate for excellence. The scholar's lens is the fundamentals of the topic, right? Let's say you were into photography. Now you need to what? You got to know aperture, lighting, depth, macro lenses, et cetera, right? So the scholar's lens, okay, gives you a how in this whole scenario, okay? The first three give you a what and a why, right, of the product. And then the scholar's lens gives you a how on how to innovate or how to change something so that you could end up coming up with a unique selling proposition. The last video educational that I did was about a stay-at-home mom and a 17-year-old girl, and they both sell slime from their kitchen, from their home. And their unique selling proposition is simple, okay? I come up with more creative slime than other people because the current slime on the market is bland and boring, at least according to the story, right? So from here, we're going to go ahead and place a minimum order quantity because we want to reduce the risk as much as possible. Now, from here, we're going to execute. Execution is the simplest thing. This is what I really dislike about all reselling gurus telling you to just jump in and do it. Why? Because they want you to join their group. That's why. The execution portion is the easiest portion because all the guesswork is taken out of the equation. Let me explain what I mean by that. Have you ever heard of the terms of, this company failed because of poor execution? Have you ever heard of a story that is somewhere along the lines of that? Okay. So what happened? Well, people didn't quite resonate with our commercial. We didn't with the timing of the blah, blah, blah. The newspaper wasn't, all those kind of things. But when you're developing a tangible item to sell on eBay, there's no other path. It's just one pigeonholed path. The guesswork is taken completely out of play, right? You're just going to go make a listing, follow all the keywords based on all of the research that you've done, take a page out of your competitors' playbooks, and now I'm going to make a bomb listing. That's why doing the execution portion is so easy. So telling people to just go out, buy stuff, sell it on eBay, you're missing so many steps before you could just go ahead and start running the business. You see what I'm saying? Now, the thing is that people are going to come back and push back to me and then say, well, it's not like, reselling doesn't work. You could totally sell stuff. Yeah, you could absolutely sell stuff right here. The green, the yellow, the orange, you are selling stuff. But eventually, this portion of the business is going to catch up to you, isn't it? Also, for you to be manually involved in every single sale that you sell is very cumbersome, is very, very tiring. Let me come back to over here and show you exactly what's happening now. So once we're able to develop our item in a small quantity batch, we go ahead and then we put it up on eBay, right? There's a lot of ways to make an excellent listing, but we'll cover that in a different video. So now what I'm going to do is that let's assume we made an excellent listing and we're just going to go ahead and monitor its sales performance. As we're monitoring this, right, there's only 3 possible outcomes that could happen. And the first possible outcome is the desirable outcome. There's strong sales. It's moving 5, 6, 7, 8 every single day. And from there, we could tweak the listing to make it sell even better. And as it collects more metadata, it's just going to organically rise through the ranks. The next one is B, the less than desirable outcome. This thing is only moving 1, 2, 3 every single day. It's okay. No big deal. Because 2 things could happen from the less than desirable outcome. It might pick up some traction actually, because it's still moving 2 or 3 a day. And maybe because of that, now it has the metadata to support it and it's moving up in the ranks of it on eBay, and it's going to move into 4 or 5 a day. So maybe we should reorder it by then and it's a keeper. But let's just say it hovers at 1, 2, 3 every day, 1, 2, 3, like constantly until basically our shipment is close to running out. Okay, that is a phase out strategy, meaning we don't have to change the price. We don't have to do much of anything, okay? We're going to recoup our money back. If you're talking about moving 3 every single day and you only have 250 units of it, that is about a little over 83 days. So within 3 months, that supply is going to be gone anyways. Now, if you're comfortable with the outcome of this item, sure, it's a slow mover, but it's predictable sales. I'm going to get rid of it in 3 months every single time. So I'm just going to order the 250, let it sit there. I know it's going to be gone in 90 days. Then do that. Then treat that as a winner instead of a loser. You see what I'm saying? Now, here's the third outcome, right? Bad outcome, poor sales. It absolutely can happen. There's the possibility of it, okay? My business model is not delusional. We're going to tell you, okay, it's possible that this could happen. But the question comes back to this. Are you telling me that we went through the 4 lenses of scrutiny where we just put this item, this concept through the ringer as the seller, as the buyer, as a reviewer, as a scholar, and with, as a person of reason, we green lighted this project and it's going to fail? Highly, highly unlikely. Again, it's not that it won't happen, but highly, highly unlikely after you've done that kind of research. You see what I'm saying? So now, what's most important to understand, okay, is that we're going to rinse and repeat this process 1 item at a time patiently until we get that A, desirable outcome, or B, nurtures into that A, desirable outcome. Because here's what happens when that happens, okay? This business model starts to become a bigger picture of another kind of business model, right? Which is now that we have this one established item up here, we can move that over, right, to the reorder, replenish, restore column. And what does that mean? It means that once the 250 units are sold out, right, before that even happens, we already reordered another 900 units, 1,000 units, because we know that the pace of this thing, it's going very well. So I'm just going to reorder. I'm going to replenish with my stock in my warehouse, and then I'm going to restore the listing to reflect the amount of stock that's entering my warehouse. And that's all I do over here. This item now sells itself. So what do I do with my free time now? I rinse and repeat, and I go back and I try to do another item. I might do a complementary item. So because, again, I use myself as an example, I do eBay Motors, right? My first item was a car seat cover. My second item was a car floor mat. My third item was a car cover. My fourth item is headrest pillows. It's constantly complementary of each other within the same kind of niche because I love cars. That's what I know. That's what my passion is. And I'm going to keep innovating in that direction because I care very deeply for automotive products. So now we start all over again, right? We may not have to, do that much research because we're already an expert in our field. And then we start, developing the next item, get a minimum order quantity of that, and then do that again. So when you think of what's happening in your business right now, is that I got one item that's moving and another item that's still in its trial and error phases. So what is the risk of my company at this moment? We are at only 50% risk because this core item is the backbone of our business. So we're going to crack at this, right? To make sure that we try to get another desirable outcome so that we have a second core item. And when we have a second core item, our business is now at what? 33.3% risk when we develop the next item. And when we have 3 items, it goes to 25%. You see what's happening here? As we just keep doing the business, it starts to become more and more sustainable, stronger and stronger. And risk mitigation is baked into the business model naturally, organically. So imagine if I have 20 established items, right? Like I have 19 established items, and then my 20th item, I'm working on the possibility and the outcome and whatnot, right? So what is my risk then? When you think about 20 items total, then that means my risk is only at 5%. If I had 100 items, what's my risk at? My risk is at 1%. So where does this put me? It puts me in a it removes all the desperation out of the game. So every single time I go ahead and I look at an item and, I get to think about it with a clear mind, right? I don't have to do this item. I got plenty of other items right now that's rolling and doing very well. It's keeping my company very balanced, right? Very sustainable. We're very strong right now. I don't need to do this item, as opposed to over here, right? In the other business model that we're talking about, every single time you sell this item, I got to replace this item. I got to go out and source. Otherwise, there's nothing to sell because my items that aren't selling. And the ones that I did sell, I already sold them. I need more stuff. So you're constantly frantic in this situation. While over here, the more items that you build up kind of acts like a moat around the castle, the safer the business becomes. This is what growth, longevity, sustainability looks like. This is what you want to be protected under for a bright future in case you get old, you get sick, in case you get injured, okay? So guys, that is what I wanted to bring to you guys today, just the whole visual concept of what is actually happening should you decide to become a reseller or you're currently reselling right now. You guys talk, one of the main pushbacks that I get is that, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Well, okay, show me what's your way to skin a cat. That's how you skin a cat? Let me show you how I do it. And you see like the huge difference in between. And that's what I would like, to bring the awareness to other people. Just like in this whiteboard that we're seeing today, we zoom out and we see the big picture of what's actually happening visually. Anyways, guys, that is the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you learned something, please consider subscribing. And as always, thank you, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.